we are. I'm Tom Osman, and this is Whatever Comes Next, the podcast where I explore the world of underground and independent music making. And on today's episode, I am talking with singer Anne Richmond Boston of the Swimming Pool Cues, but also solo artist. And part of the reason why we're talking, a big part of the reason why we're talking, is because back in November, Anne released her second solo album, I Should Be Happy, which on the surface doesn't sound like a particularly unusual story. She plays in a band. She also has some solo material. But there is quite a story behind I Should Be Happy because initially this was intended to be the follow-up to her 1990 solo debut, The Big House of Time. But for a variety of different reasons, the album didn't see the light of day until last year. So there is obviously a big story behind what happened in between. And that was part of the reason why I wanted to have this interview. The other primary part of why I wanted to have this interview was that when I listened to the album, I immediately was struck by how much I liked it. And as I said to Anne in this interview, it feels like an album that's kind of out of time. So listening to the Swimming Pool Cues, for example, who came to prominence in the mid 80s in the sort of college rock world, I suppose you would say, alongside bands like R.E.M., who were also in Georgia. Swimming Pool Cues were in Atlanta, Georgia, and R.E.M. in Athens, Georgia, but relatively near to each other and therefore, and also essentially peers. And the first solo record, The Big House of Time, feels like a record that fits within that sort of musical timeline of the late 80s. But as I say, I Should Be Happy has got its own very distinct identity. And again, I said this to Anne in the interview that one of the things that's really interesting and endearing about the album is that it sounds like it could have been recorded earlier. It sounds like it could have been made at any point subsequently. Sometimes her voice reminds me of Patti Smith, even though she herself doesn't sound anything like Mark Lanigan. Listening to the record, there were times where it sort of reminded me of that world of loss and longing and, sort of deep emotions, but expressed in a sort of a subtle, understated way. And instrumentation is really beautifully done, and she sounds great on the record as well. So in my tiny capacity in the DIY underground, I wanted to be able to shine a light on this record, as well as just having the opportunity to talk to Anne because I thought it would be a really interesting story, which it was. So we talk a bit about her history and Swimming Pool Cues, and for instance, how they ended up playing alongside Lou Reed or supporting Lou Reed. And from there, going into the story of the record and how it was made and the various different stages of that process. And yeah, with also a little bit of a music business discussion at the end. So you may notice that I'm slightly discombobulated in this interview. I think it was the day after I had just got back from Thailand from a very long flight or long couple of flights. So I'm slightly delirious, but I think it was okay. And Anne was a very gracious and kind and pleasant interviewee. So I hope you enjoy it. I enjoyed it. I hope she enjoyed it. I am going to play a little clip from a track that I talk with Anne about in the interview, Speedboat's Wake, which is probably my favorite song on the record. And in fact, Anne was kind enough after the interview to send me the previous version of it, which sounds very, very different. And I also listened to the original of that track. Some of the tracks on the album are cover versions. And that was originally by a band that she brought up in the interview. I think they're called Men and Vaults. And I've listened to the Men and Vaults version. I've listened to this alternative version that she sent to me. And for my own personal humble opinion, I like the version on I Should Be Happy the best. So feel free, if you're curious, to go and listen to the original by Men and Vaults. It's interesting to hear the interpretation that Anne and the musicians that she was working with made on the track on I Should Be Happy. It's a good representation of the kind of the mood of the album, I think, but every track on the record has its own musical identity, and I think that's another element that makes it a really worthwhile record. So If you haven't heard it already, I hope you'll check it out. I hope you enjoy this interview. I believe that Anne is currently working with some musicians on putting together a live band for the record, but I don't think that there are any concrete dates in the pipeline yet. Swimming Pool Cues have their own website that you can go to. They don't have any live dates coming up, I believe, but they are still playing shows, and Anne is a part of the band, so that's something else to look out for as well. But I will put links for I Should Be Happy, which you can get on CD or vinyl or digitally from DB Records, the original home of the Swimming Pool Cues, as well as formerly of other bands like the B-52s from that era and that musical world. I believe Anne said that if you're in Atlanta, you can actually go and physically buy a copy, but otherwise, probably the most realistic thing to do would be to go to Bandcamp. I should also mention that you can follow me at Tom Osmond Sounds on various social media. You can go to my website, tomosmondsounds.com, where I do put links to my music, and I have some writing about my music, and my music's on Amp.Wall as well as Bandcamp. I believe that is all that needs to be said at this stage. So Anne Richmond Boston of the Swimming Pool Cues and solo recording artist, take it away.
Turn out the lights and smother the phone. I'm wide awake, I don't feel I'm home. Coffee, no thanks, I don't want any food. Put on your robe, I'm not in the mood. There's a knot in my stomach from nothing I ate.
Anne, Tom, lovely to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
So I'm guessing you're at home. Would that be correct?
That would be correct.
And where is home for you?
Home is a little town called Colbert, kind of like Colbert, but Colbert, Georgia.
And so you're originally from Kentucky, right?
Yeah.
Briefly in Florida when you were a child at some point.
Yes, very briefly. 1 year almost exactly.
Okay. And so how much did you move around once you're in Georgia?
My family moved to Atlanta, and I stayed there for about 30 something years. And then I moved to Colbert, which is just outside of Athens, about 30 something years ago.
And how big is it? I mean, my geography in general is terrible, but particularly bad when it comes to the US.
How big is Colbert?
Yeah.
Oh, tiny. It's just a few thousand people.
And how do you find that? Well, I mean, I'm presuming that you like it if you've lived there for quite some time.
No, it was really, I had moved to Athens for a job, which is about 15 miles from here. And then when I, for some unknown reason, thought it would be a good idea to buy a house. And so houses in Athens were too expensive, for me at the time. And so this is a little further out, and so I bought a house out here. But it's not that I like my house okay, but it's not the place of my dreams or anything.
Fair enough. We are partly here to talk about I Should Be Happy, which has got quite a story attached to it. But I wanted to go back a little bit before we get to that. So tell me, first of all, if you would, how did you end up joining the Swimming Pool Cues? Because you joined pretty early on, I think, but you're not a founding member. Is that right to say?
I would say that I was a founding member.
Oh, you were a founding member. Well, then I do apologize.
No. It's okay. I think the founding members would definitely be Jeff Calder and Bob Elsey. But I definitely was there for the first gigs,
Yep.
So they started the band, and then they got a bass player and a drummer. And I was mutual friends with the guy that sort of got Jeff and Bob together named Glenn Phillips. And so, he kind of pulled us all together. And I don't know, I don't know if they were looking for a vocalist or whether Glenn just thought it would be a good idea. So he suggested me to them. And I had known Bob, who's the guitar player for the Q's. I'd known him since he was 14. So, you know, just sort of an incestuous little Atlanta thing happening.
But you'd been singing from quite an early age, if I understand that well.
Just in chorus and school chorus and choir and church as a little person, and then yeah, and then of course I was in a not of course, but I was in a talent show in high school and that kind of thing. Music is, I mean, I've always really loved music and especially vocal harmony. So I
Yeah.
don't know how I ended up in the Q's, but that's, it's fine. It's 48 years now.
Was there a sort of a defining moment for you when you sort of got into rock and roll, so to speak?
Well, I mean, I think the 60s definitely, I mean, that's when it all kind of broke loose. And I have three older siblings, and I think they were definitely listening to some rock music, and my brother was really into Dylan. And so, it just happened. And there were, Atlanta back in the late 60s had a couple of really great pop festivals where there are all these, Hendrix played and Led Zeppelin, and I went to that, and it was, it was just fantastic. So I don't know that I thought that I would ever be in a band, but I really, love that music. Well, I mean, soul and rock and, all that.
And so was the Swimming Pool Cues actually your first band, or had you played in other bands before that?
It was pretty much, I was in, I wish I had a memory because it would help, but I think, I mean, it was definitely the first band that put that much time and effort into it. I think I was in a band that played some cover stuff with some really great Atlanta musicians, but that the cues were definitely, we were doing all original music and playing out and ended up, touring and that kind of stuff. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's the only one.
And so, like I've seen the band cited as sort of being forefathers in a way of bands like REM. I'm wondering, I mean, not necessarily REM as they went on to be this gigantic monolith of a huge steady rock band, but like when they were more sort of like the college radio band of the mid and the late 80s. I'm wondering, like, for you, for the band in the late 70s, early 80s, or mid 80s, like who did you sort of consider to be your peers?
Well, definitely. I mean, all the bands, Athens is so close to Atlanta. It's only about an hour or so away. And so that was really the heyday of all these clubs in Atlanta and Athens. So we were all just, crossing paths back and forth. But Pylon, the B-52s, R.E.M., there was a band from Atlanta called the Fans and the Brains, and, they were all happening at the same time. So I would say that all of those were, we all played at the same venues and, open for each other and that kind of thing. So it was really great. It was a really great time to be in a band in the South.
Yeah. And so from the podcast that I was getting confused about that I listened to before, there were a few things that came up that I wanted to mention. So one of the things was that you did mention how you never actually got the chance to tour in Europe or outside of the US with the band. Was that actually just true in all the music that you played throughout your career? Did you ever play outside of the US?
Only in Toronto, that we got to, because when we toured with Lou Reed, when the Keys toured with Lou Reed, we went to Toronto. And I thought, so I told the story about how he wanted to take us to Europe and
Yeah.
A&M wouldn't pay for it. So that was a real drag. I think that could have been a really fun, great experience for us.
Well, one of the things that I end up talking about quite often with people I interview is this, how different the scale is in terms of like driving, between the US and Canada with Europe. Like in Europe, in certain parts, a few hours you could be from one country to another, whereas in the US or Canada, you might need like 7, 8, 9, 10 hours just to get from one city to the next.
Exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, to me, it would have been so great to just be able to hit a lot of different places, in a short amount of time. But Here it was just when we did the tour with him with Lou Reed, it was like all the way out to the West Coast, so that's at least a few days getting out there, and then going up into Canada, that's another full day. It's so it
Yeah.
was a lot longer situation, but yeah, I mean that I guess that's a good reason to go over to Europe and play. Get a lot more done in a short amount of time.
I mean, there is that potential. I mean, I guess, if you're 20, 21, 22, and you don't mind sleeping on the floor of a van, then it's
Never,
not.
never mind that. I don't mind that now at my ripe old age. I'd sleep on the and if the opportunity arose, I'd freaking sleep on the floor of a van, whatever.
All right.
I love being on the road. It was really fun.
So it's like, so how much experience did you have with that? Like, how much did you tour? How much time did you spend on the road?
We spent a lot of time on the road, and this was, but I mean, when I say that, I mean it was mostly up and down the East Coast, which we'd go from Florida, Georgia to Florida, and then back up to Virginia, West Virginia, and then uh, we played in Maryland and Boston and New York, and I mean, it was a great route. You could do a whole string of dates, and it was really great. But we did that many times before we got signed to A&M, and then after that, I think we spent a little money that we got from them and bought a van that we didn't have to sleep on top of our equipment. And so we traveled in that. But that was, and we toured it quite a bit for A&M too, but it was great. I loved it. I mean, I love seeing the country and I just
Yeah.
like being in a moving vehicle, which I guess is not very eco-friendly, but I really just love seeing the country and
Well,
traveling.
there are less eco-friendly things you could be doing. You could be flying in a private jet.
Well, true.
These things are all
We
relative.
never did that. And we never had a bus. So,
It's difficult to be kind to the world in every aspect of our lives.
no kidding. And very few I think I'm involved in, but it seems like it's getting worse and worse. But what can you do? Like my CD is in a jewel case, and I'm like, why? I don't want to do that. I just want it to be cardboard or something. But I apologize.
I think the universe forgives you.
I hope so.
So you signed to A&M, or Swimming Pool Q signed to A&M for the second record, the self-titled record. Is that right?
Yeah. Mhm.
And that was around about the time that you toured with Lou Reed.
I think so. I think I can't keep it straight, but I'm pretty sure the tour that we did would might have been, I don't even know, 85 maybe.
Yeah.
And that record was we got signed to A&M I think in 84, or that's when we recorded that record.
Do you remember the first time that you actually met him?
Oh, I don't remember the first time. Really don't. I'm sure it was just kind of, hey, nice. I really, I knew who he was and I knew his music, but I wasn't as huge, not fan, but Jeff of the Q's, he knows everything about everything, So I'm sure for him, it was just like this historic happening. And for me, it was like, hello, Mr. Reed. I mean, I'm sure I didn't call him Mr. Reed, but it was more like,
Yeah,
hi,
you weren't
innocent
starstruck.
kind of, yeah, yeah. But I mean, he was so great to us and so funny. I mean, we played with him. Our last show on that tour was in Atlanta, so that was really great to be on our home turf, and all of our parents were there, and we got to and we jammed with him on a couple songs, and that was really a
Oh, that's
blast.
lovely.
Yeah, it was really fun. And then that's when he invited us to go to Europe. We couldn't do it.
Yeah. So for that album, the first one with A&M, you designed the cover for that, and I understand that your day job was graphic designer. Has that essentially been your profession all these years?
Since 81, I would say, which is, pretty much these years. Yeah, I would do either freelance work or I had a couple of pretty long-term full-time jobs doing it. So yeah, but not doing cool stuff like album covers or anything. It's mostly just, brochures and advertisements and things like that.
Well, I was going to ask you though. So when you designed the cover for the album, what was kind of like, was there sort of a higher highest profile job that you'd had before that, or from your point of view, was everything quite low key without a huge amount of pressure attached to it?
Yeah, everything. I mean, it was all just a job, but that was really fun because at the time I was working for this guy in Atlanta and it was great because I could come and go as I needed as when we would be out of town and stuff. But when we got signed to A&M, of course, there were only like five of us in this design studio. And so I said, well, I want to see if I can come up with a design for the cover. And my boss, who was he's my mentor, Don Trousdale, said, well, let's all do one and, let's see what we come up with. And I just approached it merely from just a design point of view. I just wanted it to be something that would be kind of striking design wise. And the other people came up with one, and he said, "Oh, I think yours. You got to present that one." And I was like, "What?" I was okay. I'll do it and see what they say. And they went for it, which was surprising because the next one was a total disaster. But
Blue
Blue
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow. Oh, don't look at it. Don't look at it.
I mean, it's a striking cover.
Oh, the story behind
I do love it.
Violet.
I do love a Shetland pony.
Oh, yeah. Well, the one on the far, if you're looking at it, the one on the far left is missing an eye. Just for your, you know, FYI. But it was terrible. It was a nightmare of a situation. And when they sent me the uh comp, when they put the cover together and everything, and they sent it to me on the road, and I got it in a FedEx envelope, and I'm opening it up, and I just burst out crying. I just couldn't believe it. I just hated it. And they know that. I mean, I told them I did. But I had come up with this concept for the second one and gotten it approved. And then the day of the shoot that we were supposed to do, we got this really great photographer, Britton, what was her name? Britton Hill, I think, come down from New York. And it was going to be cool. And we found this circus family in Florida, and we were going to do this really cool cover. And it was going to be called Children of All Ages. And it just became a nightmare because one of the band members overslept. So then it was the hottest part of the day in Florida, and it just became a huge nightmare. So we said, well, let's go over. So it was this circus family, and they had a farm kind of thing. And we went over to their farm, and then we saw the ponies. And I went, oh, let's go get our pictures taken with the ponies. That'd be fun. And we never should have done that. I mean, it was just like that was never intended to be anything but just a joke, kind of. And that's what they ended up using. And then J.E., who's in the middle, he wasn't even there, and his head got blown in. And this was in the early days of Photoshop. And he's like probably another foot taller.
Now that you mention that, I do see what you mean. It does look slightly incongruous there.
He's about a foot taller than that, actually. And, you can tell the color's a little bit off. And oh my God, it was just, but, live and learn.
But then, so at that point, had you only done covers for the band? Because you would go on to do covers for other bands.
I
right?
I did covers for other bands in Atlanta, but not a whole lot. But it was really fun. And then when CDs became a thing, I've done a few CDs, which much less space to work in and all that.
Yeah.
But I love graphic design. I mean, I like doing things that are not necessarily, brochures and things like that. It's very rare these days that I can actually do something that I designed from the beginning, and that's the way it turns out. After
Yeah.
after the client's comments, it gets pretty watered down.
Ah, yes. Everyone has their own opinions on what they want.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And design is so subjective. It's just like most of the time people know what they don't want, but they don't know what they want until they see something, and then they don't want that. So it's quite a problem. I mean, I love problem solving, so it's quite a problem solving situation.
So I know that the swimming pool cues split up for a while, but were you still in the band when you made your first solo album, The Big House of Time, or had you actually left the band for a while?
No, yeah, and they never let, for the record, they never split up. They kept playing
Oh, okay. I
after
misunderstood. I thought they split up for a few years.
well, no, that I left. And in 87, and that's when I did the solo record. That came out in 90, I think. So I left the band and got married and had a kid and then put that out. But they were still playing and they put out another record on Capitol that actually was just without me called World War 2.5. So after we put out the first solo record, it got pretty good reviews. It was put out on DB Records, which is an Atlanta label. It's
Yeah, and that's
run,
what you
run
the first Swimming Pool Cues album came out on that as well.
Yes, yes. And he with Danny Beard, who is DB Records, he owns a really great record store in Atlanta called Wax and Facts. Have you ever been there?
I regret to say I've only ever been to the US once. I went to Disney World when I was about 3 years old, so I don't remember anything.
Disney World, the one in Florida?
Yeah,
Uh-huh. Wow. Okay, so anyway, he's got this I'm sorry that Florida is the only US experience you've had.
I have no memory of it, so it's fine.
Okay,
It
good,
could have
good.
been anywhere.
But it might have had an effect on you because it's Florida. But anyway, this record store is really great. It's been there forever and ever. And he started a label out of there. And that's who Pylon and the B-52s had their first single come out on DB and all the. So he was doing a lot of stuff in the 80s. And so when I don't even remember how exactly it came about that I did that first solo album. But then we thought, well, we'll do a follow-up, because that one was it did okay. It got a great review in Rolling Stone, and it got I think there was they sent for some reason they sent a photographer down it was a thing like hot pics for 1990 or something like that. I have to laugh at all this stuff now, but anyway, so then we thought we'd do a follow-up, and then we went in to my to Rob Gal's studio, who was my husband at the time, and recorded I Should Be Happy.
One of the things I'm really interested about is the you called it I Should Be Happy, which is an interesting title for the album, open to a lot of interpretation. I wonder for you, because it's been all this time for the album to finally be released, if you think about what that album title meant for you at the time, how did that resonate with you then compared to how it resonates with you now?
Well, I tell you, I Should Be Happy is the name of a song on the record, and it was written by, not me, it was written by this guy, Clay Harper, who was a friend of mine back then and still is. And, and I thought, oh, I should be happy. It was appropriate in that song, I've got I've got a house, I've got a child, I should be happy, but you're just not, you think that somehow these things will make you happy. So then when the record didn't come out, the whole record didn't come out for 30 years, I still think, my thing is I'm a very full of, always been filled with awe and wonder about things, but I'm also really a person who is incredibly affected by loss and longing and those kinds of things. So now that the record's out, and that's a whole other thing with the songs that are on it now, which were not on it originally.
Mm.
The title fits perfectly. I mean, even if it weren't the title of that song, to me, it reflects more everything that's on the record, as far as it's just all about loss and longing and then hope, always hope.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like it's a very poignant album, and somehow the fact that it took this long to come out sort of adds to the resonance of it.
I'm glad you see that way. You're really the only person who's mentioned that. Sorry, my dog's barking, but yeah.
No, it's a really beautiful album, and I think that it's interesting for me to listen to your first album and then to listen to I Should Be Happy. Now, I understand that some of the songs on the album weren't part of the original recording sessions, so I'm curious to know which were the later. So, like the tracks that you recorded later, when did you record those?
I don't know, but I think sometime between 93 and 90, I want to say 98, but that could be completely wrong
Okay.
because I don't really, I'll have to ask Rob when he closed his studio because we recorded, even though we were divorced and all that, and I had met some musicians in Athens after I moved here. I wanted to go to his studio and record these songs just because I was familiar with him and he was familiar with the music and with me and all of that. So at some point between 93 and 90 something, we recorded those.
Right.
And
Okay.
I did not even remember having done that. So that when my friend Clay Harper, who wrote I Should Be Happy, and he's also a huge pizza magnate in Atlanta. He when he suggested that I take the tapes and get them digitized, that's when I discovered that these other songs that we had recorded these other songs that I had totally forgotten about. And I was just like, oh, okay. Now you've got even more to work with, once. And I thought that I would, get Pro Tools and learn how to mix it myself and do all this myself. And that did not work out, but, that's okay. I had all these songs and I was just like, oh. And then a few years later, after we got that digitized, then DB came into some money from some family loss, I think, and asked me if I was still interested in putting that record out after 30 something years. And I went, yes, I would like that, but I would like to remix it and change some of the songs. And of course, he didn't care. He was all for it.
Yeah. And so I'm wondering for you, like obviously there were different stages in terms of the recordings before we even get on to the mixing of it. But when I listen to the two albums, I feel like the Big House of Time, by comparison, it's quite a sort of, I would almost say like carefree sounding record. Like it's quite breezy. It sounds sort of like I don't. It doesn't sound so somber. It doesn't sound somber at all. And there's a kind of a these terms, I forget exactly the words you used before, but you were talking about like longing
Loss
and
and longing, yeah.
lost longing. I hear that a lot more in I Should Be Happy. I mean, just for example, like I can't imagine lines like this deprivation's really worse than just being alone, or I lie here paralyzed on your first solo album. So I'm wondering for you, you know, putting together these songs, even sort of back then when you were first doing it, did you feel like, oh, this is going to be something quite different to my first album?
Well, I tell you, gosh. Oh no, because at the time a lot of the songs that ended up being on it are weren't on it, and it was much more like the first album because Rob had written and produced and played guitar on everything on it except for the cover song. Well, I mean he didn't write them, but he played on the cover songs on Big House of Time. But so to me this record, I mean, like to me, a song from this record that would fit perfectly on my on Big House of Time would be like amazing. That would have been a great song on that record. And maybe I Should Be Happy. But those are really the only two, I think. So yeah, it became something different 30 years later, when I started thinking this is something I'm gonna do. This is
Mm,
because working with Rob had always been I just go in and do my vocal, and I didn't really have a whole lot of input otherwise. And I wasn't there for mixing as that I recall. And so it was more of his production and everything, which is great. I mean, he loves great music and all of that, but yeah, but it wouldn't have been the way I would have done it, which is
yeah.
more like this one. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the Big House of Time is a great sounding record. It sounds like a kind of a I mean, at certain points it sounds like kind of Bruce Springsteen in places. Like it sounds like 80s rock music or like late 80s rock music, which is what it was. But I think part of what's interesting for me about I Should Be Happy is it sort of sounds out of time. Like it sounds like it could have been made before that or at any point after that up until now.
Oh, good.
I wonder how much of that is to do with mixing and production choices. It's just very interesting to me. Like I think it's a really, really lovely record. There are certain, like, just for example, I think one of my absolute favorite tracks is Speedboat's
Oh,
Wake.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
every
yeah.
time I listen to this song, it just gives me chills. I love it.
Yeah, that David Greenberger who wrote the words to that, and he was in a band in Boston called Men and Bolts, and they put that on their record. And so when I was looking for songs to do, I should be happy. When he sent me that, I went, oh. But I wish you could hear the original version of it from the original. I should be happy because then you would see the difference between how it got remixed and why it's such a different song now. I should send it. Do you have a place I can send it to you sometime?
Oh, I would love it. I would love that. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Just so you can hear just the difference between that original record and now. I love that song too. I really love that
Yeah.
song. And when it, well, you'll hear it, but it's the very beginning, on this version is just this sort of like this boat bouncing on the waves, kind of do, 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 feeling. And on that, he starts it out with a screaming guitar solo kind of sound. And so which worked for him, and that's great. But, I just wanted to take it back a notch.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's a lot of subtlety on the record. You know, sometimes the instrumentation's pulled quite far back. Sometimes the vocals really drive the tracks. Well, I mean, I think in general, the vocals drive the tracks, but sometimes they're especially prominent. You know, like the instrumentation can get quite sparse at times,
Yes.
um, which I think is lovely. You know, it's got so much character to it. But you're not just singing on it, right? You are playing various instruments too. No, I thought you were playing something. You're just singing.
I think it says xylophone. I think that's one thing I play on it.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because xylophone, the actual part, and that's on Speedboat's Wake, is completely not the right notes and kind of out of tune. So that's really something to be proud of. But that's all I did. I didn't do any other playing of anything on it. And it was all, I mean, it's all old, no new vocals except for one word on Amazing I sang. Re-recorded one word. So it's all the original vocals, which may or may not come back to bite me since, I'm 30 years older and not quite sure. I'm going to a throat doctor in a couple of weeks to see what the chances are of me being able to do this.
Well, I was going to ask you because another thing which I think popped up in the podcast that I was listening to was, or maybe it was somewhere else actually, mentioned that you'd had COVID, which I also had the misfortune of having. But I understand that had some impact on singing for you.
It's hard to say. I mean, I got such a horrible sore throat that I felt like my throat was on fire, but I'm not sure what really has affected it. I mean, I still sing with the Q's, and we had a show a couple weekends ago, and it was okay. It went fine, but something's definitely, I mean, it may just be age, I mean, I don't know. So that's why I want to have somebody look at it and say that everything looks okay, that they're not nodes or that there's something wrong with my vocal cords or something, but I can't quite hit those high notes like I used to.
I mean, I guess in general, I guess people tend to sort of, the registers go down as they
That's
get
what I
older
hear.
somewhat. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's what I've heard too. I'm not an expert on the topic.
Yeah, me neither. I would agree though that if that's what they say, I'll agree with that.
So when was the last time that you actually recorded your voice for new material?
Well, the Qs are always working on new stuff. So we've recorded some things, but not anything for me personally. I'm working with some guys in Athens now that I really like. And, because I was thinking, well, what is the purpose? Why should I put this record out if we're never going to play? I mean, it might be nice to at least do one show,
Yeah.
And so I reached out to this guy in Athens named Neil Golden, who's a keyboard player. And he used to be, I don't know if you ever heard of this band from Athens called the Glands, but they were my very favorite band. And he played keyboards with them off and on. And so I reached out to him and said, yeah, I'm an old person from, I've got this new record out. Would you be interested in working with me to kind of work up a live thing. Because originally I was thinking I would just be me, a keyboard player, and maybe a guitar player, and it would just be this really stripped down thing. And he said, okay, I mean, I was shocked. And then he lives with a guy, they share a house who's also a musician who plays stringed instruments, like guitar and pedal steel and dobro and lap steel. And so he got involved. So now it's kind of building a little bit. And then the Q's guitarist, Bob Elsey, who's my favorite guitarist in the world, he said he would do it. So now we're two guitars, and I mean, it's just, getting bigger and bigger. But I think we've actually got a date booked, which I can't believe, in April. So we'll see how it comes together before then.
So have you been singing these songs even just for yourself?
Oh yeah, I mean, we practice once a week, and it's really fun. Oh my God, it's so fun. I just can't stand it.
So how do these songs feel for you now that you're inhabiting them again after all this time?
Better than ever, really. It's like because I didn't really ever sing them except, like especially the new ones, which I should go, hang on, I'm gonna go get the record. I can't remember what, but the the um the new ones, the ones that I added for
Hmm.
this version, I'd never sung at all, no, except for just in the studio. So it's fun to try to do those. But yeah, so the ones that were not originally on the record were Give In, Carry Me, Dark Room, Torn Apart, and The Wind Cries Mary. So, you know, it was a totally different record.
Yeah, the I really like that cover of The Wind
Thanks.
Cries Mary. It's definitely got its own identity to it, and a great guitar playing and great drumming as well
Yeah,
as
yeah,
having great vocals on it too. I really like how that one's put together.
yeah, Rob. We were. This was back, but when the ARB band was still together. That when we were still doing a solo thing, and we were having a practice, and somehow when we practiced in his studio, and I don't know whether we had gone up, decided we're going to record this or what, but we just recorded it at practice one night, and it was so much fun. And that, I'm sure Rob went back and overdubbed some stuff, but his guitar playing on that is great.
Yeah. And Torn Apart was another one, like going back to what I was saying about sort of minimal instrumentation, that was another
Yes.
one that stood out for me, like very much the vocals and the mandolin are driving that.
Yeah, that's a new, that was a newer one. So it's fun to see how now these new musicians are interpreting it and adding to it, or
Yeah.
it's a whole new ball game.
And one of the things I was thinking as well, listening to the album, and I'd sort of read that it got put, or that, it was recorded in different stages. So I was sort of intrigued about the process of finally doing the track listing, because I think it does have a great flow to it. It's like from one track to the next, everything's got its own identity, mood, pacing, the instrumentation. So I'm wondering how straightforward or otherwise was that to actually go, right, this is how the album's going to flow.
It was really weird because I said to Danny, I mean, I was dealing with all this. I was dealing with the mixing in the studio and all this stuff. I felt like I was in this new world that I'd never been in before. And I said, I guess we need to come up with a running order. And so I sent him the running order, and he only changed one thing. And I was pretty happy with it. I mean, I really liked the way one thing went. And we had to do it for the LP, which is different because it's missing two songs. And so the two sides of that are a little bit different than the CD. But it just seemed to come together. It just seemed to work. I don't know why that was, but he changed the position of Give In and You Planned It. He put Give In after I Should Be Happy. And I had
Hmm.
You Planned It after that. But so yeah, it was kind of painless, which was amazing.
Yeah, you planned it as another one of my favorite ones, because like it starts out with this sort of T-Rex fuzzy guitar stomp,
Yeah,
but then it's got this really lovely shimmering guitar tone that comes in later on, and that's one of the ones that's not on the vinyl. Is that right?
right.
Why did that one get cut?
Um, well, we had to cut them for time, and I just felt like I guess selfishly, I just felt like I wanted more of the songs that I wrote or, were my favorites on it. And I do like that song. That was one of actually, Rob wrote that one, and it was one of the first songs he ever sent when we were first getting to know each other. He lived in Iowa, or Minnesota, and I lived in Georgia, and he sent me some tapes, and that was on it. And I thought that was great. So we started doing that when we got together. But yeah, so now it's completely different because we don't have Rob playing guitar on it, but it's still fun. But we came up with this at the last practice we were talking about. I don't like the bridge. I don't like the middle part where it goes, "Keep playing it from the start." I just, there's something about that that nothing against him, but to me, it changes the mood of the song or something. So the keyboard player started playing dun 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 dun, dun, dun like Ice Ice Baby. But we won't keep that. But it was, we were just trying to mix it up
Yeah,
somehow.
just to kind of like to rejig things for yourself.
Yeah.
So are you have you also been rehearsing tracks from the first album, or everything you're planning to play is from this one?
It's pretty much all we can handle. But Give Me a Room from the first record, which I really love that song, and the
Yeah.
Q's play that song too. But so that's the only one from the first album.
So from reading somewhere, press release possibly, I saw mention Clay Harper and Laurie Sargent as being very important people in terms of actually getting the album, you know, going again and getting it finished. Can you tell me a bit about what that point was where the record went from just gathering dust on the shelf to actually being something that had some momentum behind it?
Well, Clay is the one who said, let's get this digitized. So he's the one that took it from tape. Well, he knew a guy in Atlanta that, transferred tape to digital. So he paid for that, which was incredible. And plus, he's always just been a big supporter, I mean, fan. We've been friends forever. And he just wanted it to come out, especially because he has a song on it. I mean, let's just be honest here. He also wrote Soul Side of Your Mind, which was on the Big House of Time. So that was a huge step, because I don't think I ever would have even thought that that was a possibility, to turn it digital, and then somehow that would be the first step toward getting it done. And then Laurie, who's my really good friend who lives up in Boston, I had told her that she's put out a bunch of records, and she was in a real popular band in the 80s and called Face to Face. And then she was living out in Montana for a while, and my daughter went out to work on her farm. I mean, we've just been kept in each other's lives forever. And then I was going to go up and visit her because her husband, Billy Conway, was sick, and I wanted to go up and visit. And so I said, should I bring the hard drive? Because they had a little home studio. And so she said, oh, yeah, bring it, bring it. Let's work on it. Let's work on it. So I took it up there, and I've told the story a million times, but it's just still so, we got the hard drive out, went in the studio, and we started playing I forget even what song, it might have been Carry Me. I can't really remember what song it was, but I think that's what it was. And she said, okay, well, first let's try this. And she takes the fader and moves the vocal up. And I was just like, God, you can do that. You can change, and let's put a little bit of effect on it. And I started crying. I mean, it was just like, this is it's a miracle. I mean, I just couldn't believe how easy that was, and how much difference it made. So we worked on that song. I was only up there for a short time, but I think that was really the only song we worked on until Billy was listening from the other room. He's a drummer. He was in this band Morphine. I don't know if you ever heard of
I
Morphine.
love morphine.
I love Morphine too. And he was the drummer in Morphine. And, of course I loved him. And he was in the next room, and he was in the kitchen, and he was listening while we were listening to some other songs on the record. And he kind of peeks his head around the corner, and he goes, do you think I could try putting some drums on that First Light? Do you think I could try putting some drums on there? I just don't think those drums fit. And I'm like, yes, please. That would be great. And of course he had a drum set up there. So he'd never really played with the song. And what he does is just almost like tribal or something. But I told him that the song was about these friends of mine. It was written by Bill Burton, who is the drummer for the Q's, but he wrote it about this horrible accident that happened in the middle of nowhere, Alabama, to these friends of ours who were coming home from a tour and got smashed in, they got hit head on by an RV, like a recreational vehicle thing, and just obliterated. So that's what that song is about. So I was telling Billy that that's what about, and I think that's what brought him to that sort of just, you know, tribal kind of sound, which I love.
That's very interesting, the story behind that, because to me, First Light and Give In, they've both got something about them when I hear, which is it's kind of like music of the open highway to me. It just feels like kind of music that it's like, even though I say I've only been to the US when I was like 2 or 3, but it feels like something would be playing when you're looking down this highway that just sort of stretches off into eternity.
Yeah, which is see, it's something I love. I love being on the road. I love that feeling. So that's great. Yeah.
So when was that? Like, how long ago was that that you took the hard disk and you were working on or you
With
started
Lori,
working on those tracks?
that would have been, I think that was, I think he died and he might have, see, I wish I could, probably 22, like summer of 22, I think, or maybe 23. Oh no, I bet it was 23. No, that can't have been because I think he died in 22. I don't know. I just don't know. I can't keep stuff straight.
Within the last few years, though.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. And then the remixing happened, and I thought that happened last year, but then I was looking at something yesterday, and that was actually 2024 that the remixing happened. So,
And the album came out in November last year, is that right?
mhm.
And you put it out on vinyl and CD as well as digitally.
Yeah.
How do you feel about Spotify and these other streaming services and this age that we live in that a lot of people digest their music that way?
Well, I think Spotify's getting kind of a bad rap at the moment because of some of their stuff. So I didn't put it on Spotify. Sorry. But
I'm
but
for me personally, this is not like career advice, but I'm quite glad that it's not on Spotify. I've decided that there are certain things that are beyond the pale, and so I'm kind of like I don't think it's one of the I have sorry, I'm going to go on a slight rant here. I have a personal thing because I worked in bookselling for years that
oh,
I won't do
I'm a book
anything.
designer.
I hate Amazon with a burning passion. So
Uh,
I won't even use like if I'm looking for something and I see like I want to look at some art or whatever and it's got an Amazon link, I won't even click on the link. And obviously there are loads of huge monolithic companies that don't pay tax or whatever else, and so everyone has to pick their own battles. So
right.
I don't hold it against anyone for digesting all the music through Spotify, but I do feel with a lot of this stuff because I observe this with Amazon because I haven't used Amazon for literally about 17 years and my life's totally fine without it.
Yes.
But I think for some people they just think like they can't imagine not using it. So I feel like Spotify is like that for a lot of people as well. It's just like, but everything's here, so why would I not use it? But it's like if you can get out of that mindset, you really don't need it. So I'm sort of curious now that I'm extracting myself from it to go like, oh, that's right. Music existed before Spotify, and I don't actually need it.
Well, the thing is it is a completely different day. I mean, and I hadn't navigated any of this stuff at all. I didn't know the first thing about it, but I just figured out how to do a Bandcamp thing, and that's pretty much what I did. And then I think it gives you options to add it to all these different things. And I think it is on Amazon. So, but don't worry about that because you don't have to do it. And then it was I think Amazon and YouTube and there's another A. Oh,
Maybe,
Apple Music. See, I mean, but everybody is just a freaking criminal. You know what I mean?
yeah.
I didn't say that, but you know what I mean. So,
My sister said a thing which stuck with me recently when I was having this conversation with her, and she said, basically, if you open a laptop, you're funding some rich prick. So it's like, what are you gonna do? You
not
just,
even opening it, just having it in front of you. And that's
yeah.
all I've got all Mac stuff. Of course, I love Steve Jobs. I often wonder what he would be like if he were still. around, but iPhone, give me a break. So yeah. But anyway, as far as music goes, I think it's really bad for the artist, but I think it's really good for the music world, for people to hear music, for the experience. So I mean,
Yeah, I mean,
you know,
there's an exposure. I
yeah,
guess like with YouTube as well, like the possibilities for people on all points of the world to hear music, to get access to music that they otherwise wouldn't, that maybe back in the day they would have had to have gone like, oh, I'm going to have to buy this album on import that I haven't heard and see
right,
if I like it or not. So there's a trade-off. I'm not going to
definitely.
say that it's all negative. Um,
No, it's a split, maybe 90-10.
I guess, like it's the more I talk to musicians, the more I talk to artists, the more I sort of feel a certain sense of indignation that people are not getting more from their art. But I guess in a way, that's kind of always been the case, whether it's the streaming services or the record labels. Not saying that all record labels are bad, but there's a long history of artists not getting perhaps what they deserve for the art that they
Oh,
create.
definitely, definitely. I mean, I people say, I mean, it really is only good. Both record companies and streaming services are really only great, lucrative for artists that sell billions of things. I mean, and for everybody else, it's just kind of moot. Although I know that people don't feel that way, but I mean, I just remember, being on a label and it was like, I still had to have a job. I wasn't, living on the music or anything. So. But I think as far as being able to have stuff heard all over is amazing.
Yeah. And what about the live aspect of that in terms of getting some kind of financial remuneration from that? I always feel a little bit grotty when I'm talking about these topics. It's like I don't want to reduce art to commerce, but at the same time, it's nice if people can actually at least fund what they're doing from what they're doing. So it's like I understand that people don't necessarily make music and go like, I'm making this because I want to be rich, but if someone's making money, you would hope that the artists would be a part of that conversation.
Well, that's really is. I mean, I have so many friends that are in bands that are very successful, but I think even then it's, the bigger you get, the more costs you have, the more overhead you have. I don't know exactly how that all splits out, but for us, I mean, the cues. We'll back in the day, like now, we don't make really anything when we play, and I don't expect to make anything when we play this show on the 27th. It's just a way to get out there, and I think a huge part of music is, communicating with people. So I mean, that's the reward to me, but you know.
What do you notice in terms of the audiences that you have? Like, do you see the same people? Do you see a lot of different people? Like, what's that kind of live experience like in terms of that interaction with the audience?
Well, I can only speak from the cues because I don't have an audience, but it's the same people that are just old now. There, every once in a while, a few younger people will come out, but it's mostly just people that were like in college when we were out playing, because we played at a lot of colleges. And so, they relate our music to that part of their lives. And it's great because they're still very diehard and all that kind of stuff. But
Yeah.
it's, it's definitely an elder audience.
Do you talk to people after shows?
Oh, always. Yeah. I sell the merch. So,
Ah,
we don't
t
have a person for that.
t-shirts?
T-shirts and then CDs and LPs and
Yeah, yeah,
that
the
kind of.
the the t-shirts. I've interviewed people who've said like, yeah, basically I feel like we're traveling t-shirt salesmen. That's kind of the first
Yeah.
thing.
Well, that's really the only place you make money. I mean,
Yeah.
with so many levels of music, so many tiers of music, the merch is it now. But we don't sell that much. But people do like to have something to take home.
Yeah. And so for the time being then, when live shows for your band for I Should Be Happier sort of in the works, where should people get the album from? So everything can be through Bandcamp. Can they go to the the label directly, or is Bandcamp the place to go?
Yeah, if you live in Atlanta, you can go to the record store to Wax and Facts and get it, and it's available at a couple stores here in Athens. But yeah, Bandcamp is the place, And then of course those orders come to me and then I fulfill those orders. So
So you've got a little packing operation in the back of the house.
yeah, oh yeah, uh-huh. And I really like putting stamps on things instead of those little, automatic labels things. So
Oh
I
yeah, like the
put nice,
DHL
nice
slip thing you've got to
stamp.
put in it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I put little stamps on them and make them festive.
And so, looking at the album itself, where did the cover art come from?
From me. I did it. It's a lino cut, a linoleum cut that I did, and it's mostly I didn't want there to be a picture of me on the front, and then I thought I love working with my hands, but I do so much computer work now that I hardly ever get to do art with my art. I hardly ever take the time. See, I need to be very careful what I say. Take the time to do art by hand. So I decided I would design a piece that I could have on the cover and then cut it out of linoleum. So that was really fun. So that's supposedly, it's not supposedly. So that's a little wood thrush that have supposedly have a beautiful song. And then that's a peach branch. So that represents Georgia. So it's just kind of a subtle nod to meaning of, or something, Georgia and songs.
Yeah, well, I think it's very fitting because it also has a certain kind of out of time aspect to it.
Yeah. And that's what I like about linoleum cuts, that they just you don't know, because that's a really old art form, and that's what I
Yeah.
love about it. So yeah.
And the picture on the back?
That picture is me when I think I was 13 or 14, and it was when we lived in Florida. It was that year in Florida. And I was
Immortalized forever.
Oh, yes. My brother took that picture. I was singing along with, I used to love to, lip sync or whatever, sing along with the Supreme's greatest hits. And so I'm sure that's what I was doing. And he, for some reason, took a picture. And so when I was thinking of using a picture, I just thought, I can't have a picture of me. So I found that picture and I've always loved it because it was so hilarious, especially because I ended up singing, in a band and stuff. So I thought that would be appropriate.
Yeah, I feel, if someone stumbled across this record at some point, whether now or 10, 20, 30 years in the future, they'd look at this and they'd all very mysterious about when was this made? Who is this person? Like, what is this all about?
She looks so young. How could she have done that? Yes, it's all a big mystery.
Well, Anne, I am going to let you go, but it was a great pleasure to talk to you. Thank you so much for your time.
Oh,
And,
you too.
I'm very happy that you managed to get the record out because I think it's a lovely record. And in my tiny corner of the musical universe, I hope that I can guide some people towards it.
Thank you so much. And I'll send you that other version of Speedboat's Wake so you can sort of A/B them and see what you think.
I would love to hear that, and I will give you my live recommendation once I've had a bit of time to think about it.
Okay. Thanks.